James Belcher is a general engineering specialist on the technical review and oversight team in the Water Supply Division. He holds a BS in construction engineering from Texas A&M University Commerce and an A water license from TCEQ. From 1999 to 2020, he worked for several public water supplies as a surface water operator or as a water system manager. In late 2020, he began working as a staff engineer for a small civil engineering firm and later joined the TCEQ in July of 2022. Right. Please join me in welcoming James Belcher.
So, my name is James Belcher, and I'm a retired system operator. Still hold my Class A water license, or as I like to call it, my other retirement plan, and some job security. I can't let Mason have all the fun. I'm going to have to tell you all a bad joke about pirates. Pirate walked into a bar, and the bartender noticed he had a big towel, paper towel, sitting on his head. He waited a minute and thought, well, I got to ask this fella, what's with the paper towel? So he goes up to that pirate and he says, hey fella, what's that paper towel on your head for? And he goes, yar, I've got the bounty on me head. So, as I understand it, we have a break immediately after I speak, so I'll try to wrap this up early. So why are we here today? Well, today I'm going to cover the topic of public water supply capacity. We'll go over some definitions and establish why change in your system capacity occurs, and then we're going to cover how you might address it moving forward in the future. And then I'll cover a few tools that the TCEQ offers to address it. Some of this information, this is stuff that I learned while I was a system operator, a system manager, and then now here at TCEQ. So the definition of water system capacity, and before y'all go any further, there may be a few operators out here in the crowd that I worked with. That is not an example of my operation skills. Before you ask, yet. So, I used to only see water capacity as a measure of how much abuse a piece of equipment in a water plant could take from me and my other operators. Such as, we left that pump on by accident, and it only took a couple of hours before the motor started glowing red and the bulk tank started running over. I guess it's at capacity. However, it turns out there's regulations within the 290s. 290.45A through F is shown on the slide. These regulations stipulate how much capacity each part of your water system should have. Most capacity regulations are dictated by the type of water system you are, whether you're community or non-community, and then further defined by your water source type, whether you're surface water, groundwater, a GUI, etc., and then lastly by the number of connections you have. So what are our different types of capacity that we worry about? Well, first one is production. This is a combination of groundwater, well yield, treatment plant production, and any purchased water contracts with another PWS, including emergency connections and trucked in water and that sort of thing. So another type of system capacity we focus on is storage. Now this can be ground storage tanks or elevated storage tanks. Ground storage tanks will provide a supply of water, but by definition, they don't necessarily provide pressure for distribution, while elevated storage provides both storage and pressure. The next type of capacity we worry about under the regulations is for pressure tanks. If you're using ground storage tanks instead of elevated storage, you need hydropneumatic pressure tanks. We use these to stabilize pressure in the distribution system. They're used for water hammer and a number of other things, and in some cases, they're used to be a big paperweight if we neglect them. There's some good stories there. Ask me after hours. However, despite these things looking like tanks and containing water, they don't actually count towards water storage capacity. Lastly, we have service pump capacity. Now, this could be high service pumps at your treatment plant. This could be booster pumps within your system. Typically, these are going to be used to fill elevated storage, or they're going to pump water from your ground storage tanks, unless it looks like the one on the other slide, which is hopefully out of service by now. So, now we know what our system capacities are, how we look at it under the law. Why does it change? I spent a little over 2 decades in water treatment, and I've seen a lot of things happen at the regulatory level and then in terms of people moving here. And one of the supervisors I used to work under, I asked him one time for an SOP, and he said, well, we have SOPs here for pretty much everything, but the only thing we don't cover is the one thing that never changes. Everything changes. And in our world, nothing stays the same, except everything changes. So, why do our system capacities change? Well, number one, things get old and they wear out. Eventually, not even the best operator can keep them running forever with baling wire, coat hangers, and duct tape. Apparently, further, Texas is a great place to live, and now everybody else realizes that, and they've been moving here. Lastly, state or federal government produce new regulations that can affect your effective capacity or treatment capability. So how can we address these changes in our water system capacity? I'm sure you've heard it before, failing to plan is planning to fail. There's a lot of these changes in growth in Texas that caught a lot of us unaware. I'm from a small town in northeast Texas called Greenville, and then I currently live in a small town called Alpine. In both cases, we've seen a tremendous amount of growth out there, and you don't have the infrastructure, you don't have the tax base, you don't have anything to support all this growth. And overnight, you've got a ton of demand. And then overnight, you realize that you have all this infrastructure out there that's been aging, and you're kind of waiting for the money to just magically appear and replace it all. So what do we do? Well, to the best of your abilities, plan it out. Perform annual audits on your infrastructure components. Look over each pump, motor, tank, or groundwater well, as applicable, at least once a year. Review each part of your public water system. See how much it gets used. The more something is used, the more important it is. And the more important it is, the more important that you have a replacement plan or an upsizing plan in place. Next is investigate the cost of replacing components. Most finance departments, budgeting specialists, and analysts like to track these things so that they can fit them into your annual budgets. If you think you're going to need a new pump, tank, or even a whole water plant, it's a lot easier to save that money over time than it is to drop all that money at once. Lastly, something that I enjoyed doing in TEACS, TRWA, and TWA classes was to network with other operators. Find out how they would address some of the same problems. There's a wealth of knowledge out there in this state in terms of operator knowledge. Next, keep an eye on how many new connections to expect. Talk to developers and contractors in your area, or talk to other personnel in your water supply. Do some simple networking in-house or in your community. Talk to your billing department. Ask them to verify your connection counts that are served every month. Especially for those of you that submit an MOR, y'all are tracking your connection counts monthly, right? Your silence is reassuring. Next, research your water rates, because that's ultimately what's going to pay for infrastructure that we need. Make sure you have the means to replace infrastructure, not if it fails, but when it fails. Don't get stuck under the idea that our water rates are low so our service can be poor. That's never an acceptable solution. Further, in reviewing your connection count, in the 290, is it 29038, they go into the definition of a connection. Some people use a rule of thumb of it being 1 meter is one connection. I'll spare all the definitions here. However, recently there was a Senate bill here in Texas, SB 594, that has made some changes in how we identify connections, specifically in regard to RV parks. Because RV parks are served by a master meter, normally. While an RV park or apartment might be served by one master meter, the state, well, we view each living unit as one connection. However, now, thanks to SB 594, if an RV park is within an existing PWS, 8 of those RV slots counts as one connection. Okay, this becomes very important when you're looking at your system capacity based on connection counts. This can either work for you or against you. However, if your RV park is its own PWS and not within the confines or the CCN of an existing PWS, SB 594 does not count. Okay? That becomes crucial for some systems where they're having to go back and count every apartment, every condo, everything as a separate connection. This is a way that might actually lower your connection counts and lower your mandatory system capacities. So again, develop a plan on how you'll address failures and deficiencies and shortcomings in your PWS. Most importantly, focus on the future and unplanned emergencies. Remember, Murphy wasn't a lawmaker, but they did name a law after him. So, start developing a plan based on your findings. Well, this is a really difficult thing to do in any water system. It doesn't matter if you're a MUD, a SUD, a city, a district. You are the licensed operator, which means your customers depend on you to be their eyes and ears regarding public health and safety. If they don't know what you need, they can't give it to you. Okay? You have to communicate these things. Help your city council or your board members understand what a critical system failure would look like. That sometimes helps them understand how important it is to develop a plan for getting the money together, give you the components you need to keep your system running. Further, talk to others in your organization. Tell them what you have, tell them what you found, tell them what you need. Be transparent. Remember, these other folks may not be operators. They may not know anything about the water system. That's what they rely on you for. So now we're going to talk about, obviously, the most important resource, time and money. Because everybody has a lot of that, I'm sure. So everything can be solved with the proper application of time and money. And I'm sure every water system here has a ton of time and money. So if there's a sudden change in your system capacity and you need time and money to address it, where can you find time or money? Well, I'll skip to the good news. There are a way or two within the TCEQ system of addressing deficiencies that you might find in your system capacity. So what are the easiest paths forward, the most efficient paths forward that don't actually cost any money up front? Well, there's several free options for addressing these things right here at TCEQ. Now, I'm going to put a good bit of focus on ACRs because I work in the technical review and oversight team, and we do a lot of these things. Under the rules and regs, y'all are required to have a certain amount of system capacity in each of the categories I've listed. For example, many water systems have to have 0.6 gallons per minute per connection of water production. Not all, but some. Well, an ACR, when it's approved, can lower that, sometimes as much as 50% or more. This is a very good thing, because if your population explodes overnight and now you don't have any pressure deficiencies, but by the rule, you're out of compliance. You don't have enough capacity. Well, an ACR can put you back in compliance. Now you don't have to spend the money on new infrastructure when your old infrastructure is still working perfectly fine. So an ACR from the Technical Review and Oversight team can be a quick solution, or it can be a long-term solution depending on the severity of the problem and the individual system itself. So these are often requested because the PWS was not prepared for the overnight population growth they expected. Has that happened to anybody here? Hasn't happened to anybody here. Man, y'all are lucky. Or there wasn't a clear plan in place to deal with aging or failing infrastructure components. So what's an ACR? An ACR, an alternative capacity requirement, consists of TROT staff, somebody that looks like me, reviewing your actual water usage per connection to determine if the minimum capacity requirements in the law are actually more than your system needs. If so, your capacity requirements can be reduced. Why put in new, larger infrastructure if existing infrastructure is still in good shape and is serving the PWS supply and demand? What is an ACR not? An ACR does not fix anything. I will not come to your plant and repair your broken pump. It's a way to reduce regulatory capacity requirements of your public water supply. It doesn't change your demand. It changes your regulatory minimum. It's not going to replace broken pumps, dry well, rusty water tower, or wake your operators up on night shift. It doesn't remove the need for a PWS to spend money to fix things that break. Further, an ACR is not a permanent change in your capacity requirements. It can be awarded, but it can be revoked if certain conditions are not met and maintained. So you go through the trouble of generating all the paperwork needed. You gather your info, send it all in, you get a confirmation email from us that it was received. Well, now what do? Well, the same thing all of us get to do when dealing with the government. You wait. If you're rewarded a reduction in your system capacity, you need to determine your next step. Do you replace your failed, aging, or undersized infrastructure, find a way to pay for it, and then go tell all your water customers their bills are about to go up? Or are you fortunate enough that you're now compliant with the rule and are done? If so, take this opportunity to go back to step one, develop a better plan for addressing the future. Because remember, we all want to leave our water systems better than how we found them. We want to pass them on to the next generation in better shape with a better plan for moving forward. The alternative is you got a letter that denies your request. Now what? Well, all's not lost. We include instructions in the letter that we send you. It tells you what we need to go forward with another review. Read the letter, gather the info, resubmit. Worst case, call me and I'll read the letter to you. It happens more than you think. So where can you learn more about these ACRs? If you want to know more about ACRs, the Technical Review and Oversight team, TROT, offers guidance on how to submit these and what information is needed. Come talk to us in the TA room or contact us at the listed email or phone number. We'd be glad to answer your questions or help you in any way we can. So what else can you do? If an ACR was not a viable option, TCEQ has other resources to assist public water supplies in addressing their system concerns and shortfalls. For one, and I can speak to this one personally, the Texas Optimization Program team has a long history of helping water systems that are in dire need of evaluation, although sometimes that's through CPEs and SPEs. The TOP, or Texas Optimization Program staff and contractors, provide technical assistance to PWSs that are struggling with conventional or innovative treatment technologies and distribution system issues. TOP staff and contractors also train PWS personnel, training providers, and TCEQ staff. They will have a table in the TA room as well if you'd like to talk to them in person and see how they can help you with addressing the changes your PWS is experiencing. And here's a fun fact. The top team did an SPE at a water system I used to manage, and I learned a ton about the condition and capacity limitations of the system I'd worked at for years through the great people and Mason on the top team. Through their efforts, I was able to make a number of treatment changes that saved us a ton of money. It saved, in retrospect, we saved about $1.5 million a year just in chemical purchases and made the plant run much more efficiently. It made it a lot easier for us to get an ACR in the end, too, because we had optimized the system. So I have to give a little shout out to Mason when he was part of the top team, because it's part of his fault that I'm here. I saw how good of a job he did, and I thought, I want to do a job like that, serve the public in that regard. At least that's what I'm going to say here publicly. So another option for y'all is the Financial, Managerial, and Technical Assistance, the FMT team. TCEQ offers free financial, managerial, and technical assistance to help public water systems comply with regulations, including capacity requirements. You can contact FMT at the phone number or email listed, and they can help with issues such as prevention of operational problems, training about how to comply with rule requirements, and performing capacity assessments. The FMT team will also be available here in the technical assistance room. Now, I didn't get the chance to work with FMT back in 2012, 2013. I only got to work with Top. But I've talked to a number of operators who've worked with them, and they all have great things to say. So that pretty much wraps up my TED Talk this morning. I and the rest of TCEQ appreciate your attendance at the 2024 Public Drinking Water Conference. We know that you're here because you care about protecting public health and safety, and we all want to encourage you to continue doing such a great job. I and all the other members of the public who don't get a chance to thank you individually for the jobs that you do, the birthdays you miss, the normal lives that you miss, all the anniversaries and everything else that you don't get to be a part of because you're busy working to protect public health and safety. Thank you for what you do. If I or any member of the TCEQ can be of assistance to you or your public water supply, please drop me a line at the contact info shown here. Remember, we're from the government, and we're here to help.